يسير مع إيران.
إلى لغة الإنصار السود وانقلاب السادة بالأيام.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's top stories. Security forces announced the arrest of the main member of the group that was responsible for the twin bombings in Beirut's southern suburbs on November 12th. The head of the Future Parliamentary Bloc, MP Fouad Senyoura, confirms that there will be a movement and taking place in the dialogue with Hezbollah on Monday. And Saudi Arabia's foreign minister accuses Iran of interfering in Arab affairs, undermining regional security. Thank you for tuning in. We begin today with security forces, internal security forces. Well, they announced the arrest of the main member of the group that is being called responsible for the twin bombings in Beirut's southern suburbs on November 12th. It said in a statement that a man known as Abu Talha was arrested in Al-Qubbi neighborhood in the northern city of Tripoli. The Islamic State group was the group responsible, claiming complete responsibility for the Birj Brajne blast that left at least 40 people killed and over 200 wounded. Security forces has, since the attack, succeeded in arresting several members of the group involved in the bombing. The head of the Future Parliamentary Bloc, MP Fouad Senyoura, is confirming that the movement will be taking part in the dialogue with Hezbollah this Monday. He told the Daily Star, quote, "The dialogue table is the appropriate place to address pending issues, most notably sectarian tensions and the presidency." Consultations are being held with movement leader MP Saad Hariri over the dialogue, and he is leaning towards resuming bilateral talks. Speculation has been rife that the future Hezbollah dialogue would be suspended in wake of the tensions between the two sides. Tensions have boiled over between them when Saudi Arabia and Iran severed ties a week ago after the kingdom executed the prominent Shia cleric Nimr al-Nimr. Hezbollah's loyalty to the resistance bloc leader MP Mohammed Ra'ad launched a Monday a scathing attack against Hariri, saying those who are suffering from bankruptcy in their exile must not find a place to return to in Lebanon in order to rob the country once again. Interior Minister Nuhad Mashnou is stating that out of national responsibility, he is compelled to seek the activation of the government's activity and help achieve a full quorum at Parliament in order to elect a president. His remarks come after a meeting he held in Rabia with former Free Patriotic Movement leader MP Michel Aoun. Mashnou stated that MP Michel Aoun tends not to get involved in the regional crisis, and he realizes the necessity to activate the government's work. On Friday, Prime Minister Tamam Salam called for a cabinet session next week to tackle 140 items listed on its agenda. On the presidential election, the minister said that the MP is convinced that future head Saad Hariri's honest efforts to help hold presidential elections, regardless of the initiative or the candidates. In lighter news, 5 Lebanese teenagers have reinvented the traditional suitcase. They've designed a smart suitcase that follows its owner, giving their invention the name Follow Me Suitcase. It could mean that the lost luggage and carrying heavy bags would become a thing of the past. Student Ralph Shalhoub is one of the teenagers involved in the project. He says it was after a trip to Dubai that they came up with the concept. The Lebanese student's innovation has sensors and an infrared system, and the owner wears an anklet which enables the case to follow its user. Now, the suitcase, which rolls on a board, has already attracted attention, and they have won an award for their project. The design uses a central processing unit, which is commonly known as the brains of the computer. Follow Me Suitcase, created by Shalhoub, Gharios, and their team members Alain Abu Rashid, Maxime Haddad, and Joseph Zaghir, uses GPS positioning and a global system for communication with a SIM card, alerting the owner of the suitcase location on their mobile. It's also equipped with an HD camera and infrared sensors. The user can control the movements through a mobile app that includes functions such as follow me, pause, and manual control. The team of young innovators now hope to attract funding and take their product to a market and to secure a national and international patent. The United Nations Special Envoy to Syria, Staffan de Mistura, is insisting on holding Geneva talks on Syrian crisis on January 25th as scheduled, according to the Syrian official newspaper Al Watan. Sources closest to the Mistura have been quoted by Al Watan as saying that the new round of peace talks in Geneva will last for 2 weeks and adjourn later for 3 weeks, after which it is expected to resume again. The sources told Al Watan that Mistura will drop a list of Syrian opposition news group going to attend the peace talks by himself, and the list will be based on that made by Saudi Arabia. Besides the Syrian government, 15 representatives of different Syrian factions will be invited to the talks, and Mistura has informed the oppositions that he will not accept any prerequisites for carrying out the talks. Syria's Al-Qaeda affiliate stormed a radio station and abducted 2 prominent media activists from a rebel-held northwestern town, according to an opposition official. The Nusra Front kidnapped activists Hadi Al-Abdallah and Ra'id Faris in the offices of Fresh FM's where they work and live in Kfranbil. Now, the head of the media at the Syrian National Coalition said that Faris, Fresh FM's director, had previously been detained by Al-Nusra, who disapprove of what they term the station's secular tendency and support of apostates. Abdullah shot to prominence in 2011 when anti-regime protests erupted across Syria before the country's descent into civil war. Last year, he was one of the journalists to interview Al-Nusra's head, Abu Muhammad Julani. Kafranbil in northwestern Idlib have been under rebel control since 2012 and is well known for its creative and often humorous protest banners in English and Arabic, which are widely circulated online. Coming up next, U.S. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump says China should take the lead in tackling North Korea. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching the 1620 o'clock news on Future Television. Saudi Arabia's foreign minister is accusing Iran of interfering in Arab affairs and undermining regional security, speaking at an emergency Arab League session called to discuss the growing tensions between the regional rivals. The crisis between the Sunni Muslim kingdom and the Shia Muslim power Iran, both major oil exporters, started when Saudi Arabia executed Shia cleric Nimr al-Nimr on January 2nd, triggering outrage among Shias across the Middle East and attacks on Saudi Arabia's diplomatic missions in Iran. Adil El-Jubair says that these attacks clearly reflect the approach the Iranian policy is taking in the Arab region, specifically with its interference in the affairs of the region's states and instigation of sectarian strife and shaking of its security and stability. The Saudi-led coalition bombing rebels in Yemen denied renewed accusations of dropping cluster munitions in the country after UN Chief Ban Ki-moon said their use may be a war crime. A coalition spokesman, Brigadier General, said that the alliance denies any cluster bombs in Sana'a. He was responding to a report issued Thursday by the U.S.-based Human Rights Watch, which quoted Sana'a residents describing a January 6 attack consistent with airdropped cluster bombs used. CD said the coalition has admitted to previously using the cluster bombs against rebel vehicles and described HRW's report as very weak, adding that they did not show any evidence. There has been widespread international concern about the high number of civilian casualties in Yemen. The Saudi-led coalition has been supporting Yemeni forces since March against the Iran-backed Houthi rebels and their allies who seized territory from the internationally recognized government. Parisians attend a commemoration service outside a Paris kosher supermarket where 4 hostages and a French Islamist gunman was shot dead during a siege a year ago. Local residents, including members of the city's Jewish community, gathered outside the grocery store holding banners and placards as officials arrived to begin the service attended by French Prime Minister Manuel Valls, as well as French President François Hollande. Earlier on Saturday, the French president led another ceremony in Montrouge outside Paris and unveiled a commemorative plaque for Clarissa Jean-Philippe, the 26-year-old police officer who was shot dead by Amédi Koulibaly, the same gunman who took hostage several people in the kosher grocery store. On January 7, 2015, Islamist militants opened fire during an editorial meeting at the satirical weekly known for lampooning Islam with drawings of the Prophet Muhammad, which have been under police protection for years. Germany's Central Council of Jews welcomed a reprint of Hitler's Mein Kampf, which hit shops for the first time since the Nazi dictator's death. The council's president, Joseph Schuster, said that the publication of a critical edition complete with commentary and footnotes was the right form for a reprint. This critical documentation and commentary can make very clear what simple false statements are to be found in Mein Kampf in order to unmask the whole thing as a nasty concussion. Schuster said this in Berlin. This 2,000-page, 2-volume work went on sale after about 3 years of labor by scholars at Munich's Institute for Contemporary History after the text's 7-year copyright ran out at the beginning of 2016. Hitler wrote most of the first highly autobiographical volume while incarcerated in Landsberg prison after his failed Munich coup attempt in 1923. In the book, a mix of personal experience and political ideology, he outlines his strategy. It's a bestseller after he became chancellor in 1933. And by 1945, it had sold 12 million copies and had been translated into 18 languages. The publication is a big step for Germany, which is still struggling with the legacy of the Nazi era and the Holocaust. U.S. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump says that China should take the lead in tackling North Korea after the country alarmed the international community by saying it successfully tested a hydrogen nuclear device. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un maintained that Wednesday's test was of a hydrogen bomb and said it was a self-defensive step against a U.S. threat of nuclear war. North Korea's fourth nuclear test angered both China, its main ally, and the United States, although the U.S. government and weapons experts doubt the North's claim that the device was indeed a hydrogen bomb.
You do have a problem, and you have a big problem with North Korea. And we're going to talk to China, and we're going to get along great with China. You know, I love China because they buy my apartments, they spend me, fortunes in Manhattan, they give me millions and millions of dollars for these apartments, and they're great. The biggest bank in the world is a tenant of mine in one of my buildings. Biggest bank, by far. I mean, when I talk about big, we're talking about seriously big. Citibank is like a little subsidiary compared to this bank. And they make a tremendous amount of money with the United States, as we've been talking about. We're going to go there and we're going to say, you got to take care of the Korea problem. You got to take care of it. Everything comes through China. And they tell our people, because our people are novices, but they say, well, we don't have that much control. They have total control. They wouldn't eat. They wouldn't live without China. And China is massive. Everyone's afraid over there of China. China can handle the problem. I want them to handle it. We don't have to handle everything. We handle everything. We don't have to. I will get China to handle the problem. If they don't handle the problem, we'll have to take it up on trade. You know, it's going to be very costly for them if they don't handle the problem, but I wouldn't say that because I would never want to threaten anybody, okay? Never. Under any circumstances, I never want to threaten. So I won't threaten them. I'm just telling you that they will do it. And they should do it. And frankly, they have a bigger problem than we do because they're right next door. And Japan has to help us out because they are really, they're very suspect. They would be, look at what's going on over there. They're already sending planes to find out what's happening. And South Korea has to help us out because we're defending South Korea. We're defending all these people. We need help. We need help. We're powerful. But I want to make our military very much more powerful. I want to make it so powerful, so tough, so strong that nobody's ever going to mess with us, folks. It's the cheapest thing we can do.
Marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Security forces announced the arrest of the main member of the group that was responsible for twin bombings in Beirut's southern suburbs on November 12. The head of the future parliamentary bloc, Fuad Senyoura, confirms that the movement will be taking part in the dialogue with Hezbollah tomorrow. And Saudi Arabia's foreign minister accuses Iran of interfering in Arab affairs and undermining regional security. Those are your Sunday headlines live on Future Television. Catch us again tomorrow for all the latest. Have a good one.
تعلن عن قطع علاقاتها الدبلوماسية مع إيران.
إلى لغة الإنصار السود وانقلاب السادة بالأيام.